Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Tigerland Properties. These are licensed professional realtors in Louisiana, commercial, residential, investments, whatever you choose to do. These people, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you want to invest, these people are the best in the business. They really are. Tigerland Properties, mainly they work in the Boot area of Louisiana, down in South Louisiana, but truly you could not be in better hands if you're buying or selling commercial, residential, or investing than Tigerland Properties. I encourage you to call them 225-320-3004. You want to make sure you're in good hands with commercial, residential, real estate, or investment, and they are the best. I went to Red Zeppelin yesterday with my second oldest son, Eli, and I got this large veggie pizza, which is the best in Baton Rouge. Red Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution, and we are committed to giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It's Thursday, February 12th. It's a little bit after 10 a.m. Central, and I'm Danielle Walker, joined by my friend and co-host, the watchdog-in-chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander, who made it here on two wheels, but he got here. How are things?
Good morning, Danielle. How are you doing?
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for fighting through that flat tire. I'm sorry you had to deal with that this morning. That's a lot to deal with on a Thursday morning.
I would rather the tire be flat than my spirit and my heart, which is inflated with infectious enthusiasm.
Well, wonderful. I'm glad you're bringing it to the show, Chris. Thank you for that. Yeah, we are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. You can always catch us later also on our audio-only podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcast. And just a note, if you tuned in yesterday to watch For the Love of Freedom, my guest, Adam Hardage, had an unexpected meeting come up, and I missed his message, so I was late realizing that it wasn't going to happen. So my apologies on that, but we will be rescheduling him soon, and it'll be a show you won't want to miss. And joining us today is Louisiana State Rep from District 1, Danny McCormick. In the legislature, Danny has been a fighter for freedom, a defender of core values and God-given rights, and someone who has fought relentlessly against government overreach. He is joining us by phone today. Welcome back to the show, Danny.
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Excellent. Thank you for taking some time with us.
Yeah, me too. Great to hear your voice, Danny, from God's country up in North Louisiana.
You bet. It's a beautiful, cool morning with blue skies and sun shining, and the Lord has blessed us with another day, and just glad to be in the greatest country in the world and be in this fight for freedom.
Amen.
Well, Danny, before we get into what's coming up this session and what you've got on your agenda, let me read the scripture of the day. It is Galatians chapter 2, verses 2 through 5. And this one really spoke to me this morning. It said, it's the Apostle Paul. He says, God had given me a clear revelation to go and confer with the other apostles concerning the message of grace I was preaching to the non-Jewish people. I spoke privately with those who were viewed as senior leaders of the church. I wanted to make certain that my labor and ministry for the Messiah had not been based on a false understanding of the gospel. They even accepted Titus without demanding that he follow strict Jewish customs before they would receive him as a brother, since he was a Syrian and not a Jew. I met with them privately and confidentially because false brothers had been secretly smuggled into the church meetings. They were sent to spy on the wonderful liberty and freedom that we have in Jesus, the Anointed One. Their agenda was to bring us back into the legalistic bondage of religion. But you must know that we did not submit to their religious shackles, not even for a moment, so that we might keep the gospel of grace unadulterated for you. And isn't it amazing that even in the time of the early church, people were being smuggled into the church as interlopers to destroy what God was doing? I read that this morning and it astonished me, even though I'd read it many times before. And what struck me was that Paul had to use discernment to know that Titus, a Syrian and an outsider, was a true believer. Yet those who were smuggled into the church were probably fellow Jews, because their agenda was to bring the newly freed believers in Christ back into the bondage of religion. So we talk here a lot about the fact that we are not to judge, and we're not able to judge motives, but we can judge fruit. We talk about this all the time. And if the fruit of the people who are among you is chaos, division, discord, and drama, take note. That's a distraction and a destructive tactic of the enemy. And if the fruit of the people, if the fruit of the people who are among you is peace, dedication to the Lord, pursuit of truth, and acting in sacrificial love, take note of that. Those are the kind of people you want to have in your camp. We have to pray continually for discernment, and I will just lead us in a brief prayer for discernment right now. Lord, give us eyes to correctly see and ears to hear and discern the truth of the fruit of those who are in our own camp, who have come to divide and destroy, and those from the outside with genuine hearts of service who truly love you. Amen.
Amen. Danielle, I can't really add anything to that, because it's just so powerful and so true. It's amazing how, other than to say this, it's amazing how there's nothing in life, no situation, no circumstance, that there is not some allusion to or even explicit reference in the scripture. It's amazing how
Yeah.
what we are dealing with when it comes to advocacy work, and I know Danny knows about this, in his own work in the legislature and other places. There are always quislings in the midst, and we have to make sure that we have the discernment of the Holy Spirit to determine who's true and who is not. And one way to measure that and to have that discernment is to judge the fruits, as you just said. If there's chaos, it doesn't look like any progress is being made, the sowing of discord surrounding a person or a group all the time, then you know that that cannot be of the Holy Spirit. And that's one very simple way to make that decision. So thank you for that scripture this morning. And I'll tell you, one guy who is absolutely not a quisling, but a 1776 patriot is Representative Danny McCormick. Not the first time we've had Danny on, but certainly we enjoy it every time. Rep. McCormick, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to be with us on the State of Freedom today.
You bet. I'm glad to be here, and those scriptures are really inspiring. I'd like to interject, as it's written in our Constitution and written in the scriptures, our liberty and freedom is given it to us by God. And that's important, such an important point. And that's the scripture that reaffirms that. So that's great verses that you read there.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And
You're
it's so
right. You're
fun.
right, Danny. Yeah, it's the as you have said more than once in my presence, probably in Danielle's as well. The government exists to secure our natural rights and our natural dignity, not to create them. And that's a distinction that too often people fail to make.
Yeah.
You bet.
Let's talk, Danny, about a couple of hot items, starting off with carbon capture and sequestration. I had the privilege on several bills last session to testify in support of some of your legislation. Obviously, you have fought passionately to roll back this menace in our state. There is a bill currently, House Bill 7 by Representative Mike Johnson, that appears to sort of comprehensively eliminate eminent domain for any facet of carbon capture and sequestration as far as private companies are concerned. Is that, have you had a chance to look at that bill? Is that your understanding and appreciation of his bill?
Yes, it is. And that is my understanding and appreciation of it. Of course, I'm not an attorney, so but that's my appreciation from a layman reading the bill. That's correct.
And if that is the case, do you obviously? I would assume you're going to support it in committee.
Oh yes, no
On the
doubt.
what do you think the likelihood is that it will get through committee and first through the House? Has the complexion on CCS changed since this time last year in the legislature?
It's still a hard push. At first I thought it wasn't going to be a problem to get it out of committee. Now I'm wondering if it may be. I feel confident once it gets out of committee and gets to the House floor, it's going to move on to the Senate. Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson is, if anybody can move that bill, he should be able to move it. So I'll be interested to see how successful he is.
Do you feel that if it does get over to the Senate side, Danny, I don't know if you embrace this, but there's a pretty common refrain that the Senate is where solid bills go to die. Do you believe that that will apply here, and obviously you're just spitballing this. You don't know for sure one way or the other, but what are your thoughts if it does get over to the Senate?
I agree. I believe that getting it out of Senate committee is going to be a lot heavier lift than getting it out of the House committee and out of. I mean, in the House committee, I can say it's going to be. If it fails, it may fail by 1 or 2 votes, and if it passes, it may pass by 1 or 2 votes. I don't see it getting that kind of support in the Senate if the forces to be are against the bill. So it, like you said, it's a heavier lift in the Senate than it is in the House.
So the hard battle then is getting it through the House Natural Resources Committee. Once it gets to the House floor, you think it's an easier lift?
I do, because like I said, Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson is very popular in the House of Representatives, and he being a Speaker Pro Tem is going to give him more clout to get the bill passed.
Yeah, it's amazing, Danny, the resonating power of this issue throughout the state of Louisiana. It seems to be growing in momentum. There are 12 or 14 parishes in Louisiana now that have passed ordinances or resolutions, which are largely symbolic because of current law in Louisiana, but nonetheless, they have all registered their strong opposition to carbon capture and sequestration. And it seems as though the concern is growing more and more. My own view is that it's because it's the one issue in the state that touches directly on our private property rights, on billions of dollars of our tax money, and on our health. And I think that's why there is something for almost everyone in the state of Louisiana to dislike about carbon capture and sequestration. Is that what you're hearing? That this anti-CCS sentiment is growing in the state?
Yeah. As soon as people get educated on it, is growing. The biggest holdup you have statewide is if you haven't had it in your area, you don't have knowledge of it, so you're just basically listening to what propaganda may be out there. But Chris, been 2 years ago, I was in the House committee and talking to a lobbyist, and I told him, I said, y'all have lost this fight. I said, you're done with this, you've lost. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know how long it's going to take, how many years it's going to take, but when you go to the rural area and start taking away people's private property rights, I said, you're done. I said, you may cost a lot of politicians they're getting reelected. There's going to be you're going to spend millions of dollars with these large companies, but you've lost. It's just a matter of time that you're going to lose. And that's the way I feel. What I have learned, especially in the rural area, they'll sit there and let you tax them to death and be very disgruntled. But if you start messing with their private property, especially for something that has no purpose.
Yeah.
When we have oil and gas pipelines, that oil and gas brings prosperity to the middle class. I mean, one of the cheap energy is what fuels the middle class in this country, what gives us all the freedom. This serves no purpose. It has no positive outcome of this. All it does is transfer federal dollars into the pockets of local politicians, lobbyists, and major companies, and that's the only purpose it actually has.
Yeah. It's exactly what RFK Jr. said, Danny. This is the exact type of corrupt government corporate merger that is bankrupting and ruining our country. And I agree completely
100%.
with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually got 4 bills on carbon capture that I'm actually bringing. If you want me to kind of give you a rough overview of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give us high level.
Number one is, we've been, if you've sat in committee, Chris, you've heard this, talk about how safe the pipelines are. They're safe. We don't need setbacks from school. We don't need, I went to a meeting. They told us of all the safety features they have, how you can shut them off remotely. And I said, that's great. If you believe they're so safe, let's do away with the liability limits then. If you don't think anybody's going to get hurt or harmed from a pipeline leak, let's do away with the liability limits then. So that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing a bill that does away with the liability limits on a carbon capture sequestration pipeline leak or accident if it harms somebody.
On that bill, Danny, on that one, before you go on to the next one, on that, currently, just for the benefit of the listeners, it's 250,000 cap in non-economic damages per person, whereas it used to be per accident. And of course, if there's a catastrophic injury, it goes up to $500,000 per person, which is woefully inadequate, number one, for someone who is very seriously injured from one of these CCS ruptures or accidents. And secondly, it's not the place of the legislature to make that determination to begin with. What is the difference, Danny, between your bill and it? Doesn't Robbie Carter also have a bill that is designed to do what you just said?
And he very well may. I don't know. I haven't talked to Robbie about it, and I haven't seen his bill, so I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's good to have 2 of them there. Thank you for bringing that, Danny. And it's such a great point you make. If you're not worried about it, if it's so safe and everybody's going to be fine, get rid of the caps.
You bet. Exactly.
It's hard to argue against.
Just common sense, isn't it?
Imagine that.
What else you bringing?
The second bill I'm bringing basically says, in a nutshell, that you cannot store carbon CO2 under anybody's property that doesn't want it. And so what that allows them to do, like I think there's some wealthy people down in South Louisiana that own 100,000 acres, continuous block of land. If they want to be able to store it under their land, that's their business. But you cannot take in not 1 square foot of anybody else's land that doesn't want it. So basically, it does away with carbon capture sequestration that you do not have 100% participation in. So if you're a private landowner, you won't be forced into a unit. That's what my second bill does.
So this would do away with the 85-25. I mean 85-15.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
The 85% want the unit, 15% don't. The 15% are forced in. This would end that.
That's correct.
Danny, is there anything in your bill that would make it so that would also not apply if you are just like, what if it's the edge of your property and you're next door to somebody else's property? Like, you can't run the pipeline at the far edge of your property. Like, maybe it needs some kind of buffer zone. I don't know.
Well, yes, this does not have to do with the pipeline. This has to do with the storage unit, which is actually subsurface. Is where this has to do with.
Yeah. Right. Danny, what about the issue that some of the people who are opposed to this raise, and I think it's plausible. What about the idea that even if the storage of CO2 is not right on someone's property, doesn't buried CO2, first of all, I think it becomes carbonic acid in the ground? And secondly, doesn't it migrate? Doesn't it move?
Well, that's another problem. But yes, when CO2 mixes with salt water underground, it turns into carbonic acid. You're exactly correct, which is very corrosive to metal or cement, which is also all these old wells that have been drilled. Makes them susceptible to heating up their old casing and cement and eventually migrating to the top of the ground. So, yes, and and with my bill, what would mean though, if you actually get it under my property, you're now trespassing. So you have a lawsuit on your hands if that happens.
So that's considered trespass if any of the buried geologic CO2 migrates to someone's property who has not agreed to it, then that is considered trespass.
That's exactly right.
Oh, I love that.
And then and you're liable for that trespass. So It's going to keep them away from anybody's property that doesn't want it. They won't be able to stand the liability. And I will say this, we talk about trial lawyers in this state all the time. And I said this back during COVID. We were looking for somebody to sue somebody back then when they're trying to make the shot. And take us all take the shot. So, what we need to know is that, trial attorneys are good to protect us from, in situations like this. So they're not always the evil person in the formula.
Not at all. In fact, I believe strongly in the regulatory efficacy or effect of lawsuits. Sometimes lawsuits are the only mechanism to hold corporations responsible for what they have done and to cause them to change their behavior. So I agree completely with you, on that issue. Chris. It's amazing how you everybody hates lawyers until they really need one.
What do we say? I hate every lawyer except mine. I love him.
Yeah, right. Well said, Danny. Well, you got another one that you're bringing?
I got two more, and the next one drill actually is a bill. If those two bills don't pass, and this is the one I'm actually made it to the House floor last year with. If the unit is still in place, and I'm forced against my will to put my pore space into one of these units, that I'm guaranteed to get the average amount of everybody else in that unit that was paid. So, what this actually able to do, what the purpose of it is, it allows somebody to hold out and to the last minute and still not be financially punished for holding out. Because right now, the Department of Natural Resources gets to choose what they get paid. This sets a limit. They cannot be paid any less than the average pore space owner in that unit was paid. And now the fourth. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got to ask you about this one too, Danny. I just want to remind our viewers what Danielle and I have been over before, which the bill you just talked about, to make sure that people who hold out until they are forced into the unit are not in any way discriminated against in terms of compensation that they receive for their land. You brought this bill last year as well, which made it out of committee, but unfortunately was killed on the House floor on a 61-37 vote in a Republican-dominated House. And so I think it's important to point that out, that a bill that simply would protect people who don't voluntarily surrender their property to this scam in a unit are not discriminated against or screwed or punished in the amount of money that they can recover for their property once they are forced in. That bill was killed on the House floor in a Republican-dominated legislature. I think it's very, very unfortunate. And we're going to follow it closely this year and hope you have a good result. And thank you for bringing it again this year.
You bet. Hopefully I can get it out of committee and get it on the floor again. One thing the grassroots done, I think they got lots of politicians listening now that weren't listening in the past. So they did a good job of that. And the fourth bill I'm actually bringing, to me, is actually the greatest concern of carbon capture and sequestration, and that is flying under the radar of everybody. As you very well know, Carbon capture and sequestration comes directly out of the globalist movement. And that's not it's conspiracy theory. You can just listen to them talk. They're telling us this. And they are pretending that it has to do with climate change and the Green New Deal. And that's why the environmentalists are so upset about this carbon capture and sequestration, because they know it's not environmentally friendly. But the globalist movement is 100%, and what their goal is to drive up the price of oil and gas so high that you have to come to the government for your energy needs. Just like we can look at our health system. Our health system costs have been driven up so high that we have to have government assistance, or a large percentage of people have to have government assistance, even to afford just basic health insurance. That's the same model the globalists are doing when it comes to gas, natural gas, and oil. And what my concern is, I feel confident this may happen in the future, is after these CO2 plumes are put in effect, that the federal government's going to step in and say, okay, it's too dangerous to drill the plume and the CO2 plume. And that's going to leave billions and billions of cubic feet of gas and oil stranded below these CO2 plumes.
Wow.
That's my concern. It's the globalist movement that's issuing in the one world government that every Christian's aware of what I'm speaking of. That's my number one concern. And so what this bill does, it says two simple things, very simple. If your minerals below the plume, or if you're not allowed to drill the plume to get to your minerals below it, you have to be compensated for the loss of those minerals underneath that plume. So whatever the value of subsurface value of those minerals are below the plume, if the federal government or anybody says you can't drill the plume to get to those minerals, you get compensated for that. Now this only applies to the mineral owners that don't sign away the rights. You know, if you're a mineral owner and you sign away your rights to recover those minerals, there we go again. That's a private decision. And the second part of the bill, it says if anybody puts an extra cost on you to drill the plume, like more expensive pipe or more expensive cement, that the storage operator of the carbon capture unit is going to have to reimburse you for those drilling costs. So that bill to me is extremely important, because it's trying to protect the minerals that are going to be below the plume. To me, that is the one of the goals of the globalist movement. And why do I think that? Well, they told us that's what it was.
They did. It's not like they're hiding it.
But Danny,
that's right.
It's amazing. It always amazes me that I can still be stunned by how evil. Like, if you look at something on the face and you can see that it's evil, and then you just said something about the insidious way that they're doing this is because they don't want people to access oil and gas. That makes it even more evil. I had no idea that the CCS was in some way going to inhibit oil and gas exploration or recovery. Good grief. That is absolutely insane. If this doesn't pass, I think there's going to be a lot of legislators who lose their jobs going into 2028.
Well, just think about this, Danielle. I mean, you have the pipe they put in these CCS wells. It's so corrosive. The pipe costs like $1,100 per foot.
Oh, good grief.
And you're talking about thousands of feet of this pipe. Well, the pipe that you put in a normal oil well may be, I don't know, $50 a foot on one of these deeper wells. So you're driving the cost of, you're stranding these men. And another concern we have, and I hear lots of people saying that oil companies aren't going to take on the liability of drilling these plumes to try to get the oil and gas below it, because it's going to be like a legacy lawsuit. You know, it's just waiting to haunt you. So, and as the scriptures tells us, the love of the money is the root of all evil.
Yeah. The
people that I think that are locally are pushing this is they have no, you know, they're so shallow thinkers and doesn't look at the big picture. They're just looking at the dollar and cents that they can make them. They're not carried about. They don't care about private property rights. They don't care about the long-term effects of stranded oil and gas. None of that matters to them. They're just they're just what I call bounty hunters.
Yeah.
They're just in it for the buck, and they don't care what the consequences are to their neighbors.
what a tragedy. And this is one of the reasons that we exist as a podcast, to make sure that people across the state understand what's going on, because it's up to us to hold these people accountable. And if they look like they're on the take, or if they're not listening to you, you got to blast them. You just have to let them
You got to
know
do it.
that it's not gonna be allowed to continue. So
Yeah.
thank you, Danny, for standing for that. Chris, did you have anything else on CCS?
Well, I just wanted to sort of dovetails, Danny, with your statements on the globalist nature of all of this. Barry Huggins is a chemical engineer and or a civil engineer, I'm not sure, but he's an absolutely brilliant guy. He's on the state RSCC, and I have to give him credit for this. But I just want to I'm going to read something briefly to you, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. He said CCS is a fraud, the biggest and most blatant theft of funds from the public treasury in history. Our country will be $37 trillion in debt by the end of this fiscal year. And this was last year when he wrote this, due to giveaways and the misnamed Inflation Reduction Act alone, of which the CCS subsidies are the biggest. By 2035, our debt will be $50 trillion, and that's excluding other fiscal waste by Congress. The CCS subsidy is an economic poison pill that, if not stopped, will cause economic collapse, which will lead to societal collapse, which is exactly what the globalist enviro-socialists want. This is the Cloward and Piven strategy. Break the U.S. economy, which will destroy the current society, which will enable them to rebuild our country into a collectivist state. Is that?
Yes, and I agree. I agree 100% in what he's saying. And and I honestly believe this: if you can look back through history, I think through history that the globalist, the Antichrist, whatever you want to call it, has moved in different forms. But the men of the times were able to, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Stalin, Pol Pot, Hitler. Last century governments were responsible for some people say as high as 250 million deaths. But there was good standing up against that evil. This is supposedly a Christian nation. I'm going to tie this into the Epstein files. I mean, when you have these, if we have a nation that is protecting billionaires and politicians that are sexually abusing our children, and this is, that you ought to be, we ought, if nothing else, the men of this country ought to be outraged that people aren't being prosecuted for the sexual abuse of our young girls. I mean, I just can't imagine having a young girl that would be, or their young girl being out there, maybe that's fatherless for whatever reason. And us as a country are not stepping up to protect them from these people. And, these are truly evil people and with evil motives they're not just bad people. They have evil that's in their hearts and souls when you do these things to these small children or everything else. So it's a big deal, and I guess, I do want to say this to your audience. We sit here and we talk about all this negativity, which is really true. And it can be really overwhelming to people, which is understandable. But what people need to know is we have the hope of Christ in us. And all I have to do, my goal is very simple, is doing my duty as I see Christ has given it to me. The outcome is up to him. But I have to be willing to do my duty. That's all I have to do. I don't have to, there are battles happening in the spiritual realm that I don't even need to be part of, because I am not able to be part. I'm not strong enough to be part of that. But as a man, I feel like God has given me the responsibility as being a state representative, just to tell the truth as I see it, and just tell it. And that's all we have to do. I'm not overwhelmed by all this negativity because my hope is in Christ.
Amen. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Danny.
Well said.
I think one of the things that continues to resonate with me is that one of the biggest lies that our generation has bought is that evil doesn't exist. And I think as people are waking up, it's unfortunately having to be a rude awakening, because it is an awakening to the fact that evil is not only exist, but it is extremely pervasive, and it has taken over a lot of not just industry and not just in government, but it's taken over a lot of society at large.
You bet. It's taken the manhood away from the men in this country, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, Danny, speaking of the manhood of the men in this country, let's talk of some Second Amendment. You brought a couple of bills, or you have a couple bills that have already been posted in support of the Second Amendment. Do you want to talk about those?
You bet. That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, one I know is a bill, I think it's called a red flag law that would make it so the feds, this is my layman's interpretation, that the feds can't take your guns, and if they do, there's consequences.
Yeah, and that is true, but it basically says, even more simplistic than that too, Danielle, is that we can't have to take, our guns can't be taken away from us without due process.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, for instance, we know veterans that people call in and make, say negative things about them, and the law enforcement shows up at their house and takes their gun away. But there is a justice system. So the only way you'll be able to do with this bill, and as of right now, I don't know that there's any red flag laws in Louisiana. I'm not aware of any. I've asked people to research that, but it's happening in other states. So I'm going to be naive and say that I think this bill is going to be easier to pass than others. But I've been naive before. But you know what? This is just making a statement and basically saying that without due process, our gun rights cannot be taken away from us.
Yeah.
I have, Danny, a good friend who's actually a member of our advocacy group, who is a law-abiding citizen, very successful businessman, and he has been dealing with the ATF now for months, trying to get his name cleared so that he can legally purchase a couple of suppressors. You know what they're holding him up on? A misdemeanor battery case that was dismissed 18 years ago. And yet the ATF, their bureaucratic regulatory nonsense, continues to hold him up. So I say that to say this, Danny, the feds are doing that right now. They are holding people up, illegitimately denying them their Second Amendment rights. And I know that Harmeet Dillon, that is one of the commitments that she has made, is to ensure that process is cleaned up, because there are still elements in the federal government that are trying to chip away and erode our Second Amendment rights and delay the process by which people can exercise them, notwithstanding Trump, who I know believes in the Second Amendment, but it's a big federal government. So I think your bill is a good bill, and we need to continue to push Harmeet Dillon to clean the ATF up and that process.
I'm shocked that the ATF still exists.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to need to get rid of several of those three-letter agencies in Washington.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. And Danny, what about your campus carry?
Yes, I have a campus carry bill, and to me, this is a pretty simple bill too. Basically, it says, as you know, we got constitutional carry passed after several years of fighting hard for it. We got it passed. And it allows 18-year-olds, somebody 18 years old and up, that's a law-abiding citizen, to legally carry a weapon concealed without a permit or having to have permission from the government. So what this will allow, the same thing, if you're 18 years of old or older, and you can legally carry a gun off campus, you will be able to legally carry it on campus. Mm. You know, when we talk about I talk about the young women a lot. I have four granddaughters, so. All this is very personal to me. You know, I've said before, most of my granddaughters killed their first deer when they were 6 or 7, but they won't be allowed to carry a pistol in their purse to protect themselves from murderers and rapists. But now they can after we got constitutional carry passed, and we want to extend that right on to college campuses. You know, taking another human life is nothing that we ever want to do. That is nothing that I ever condone whatsoever. but sometimes they make us take their lives. If there's a young woman be in the process of fixing to be raped and she uses a firearm to protect herself, that's a good shoot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not something you want to do, but I guarantee you, if you start poking holes in these rapists, it'll make them stop. So why will my granddaughters not be able to protect themselves from rapists on a college campus? That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Now,
It's not like it doesn't occur there. It's not like it doesn't occur there.
That's exactly right. And the Virginia Tech shooting will teach us something about, do they not have the right to defend themselves from shooters? I mean, these gun-free zones are like, saying the ducks are on the water, come shoot them. I mean, it's ridiculous to say gun-free zones work. Look, we're going to have a zone here where law-abiding citizens can't carry a gun and criminals can come shoot you at anytime they want. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, and too, something very important to me is I had a group of young people that I'm working with that college people that want this bill carried, and I want them testifying in criminal justice how they need this bill.
Great.
I told them, I said, I'm an old man. I want to carry this bill for y'all, and I want y'all to be in this fight. And they've agreed to get in the fight. So
that's awesome.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, because that I think that's a very, very savvy move, Danny, because that the prevailing sentiment among those who oppose your bill is that this is actually going to place young, vulnerable college students in greater danger, and so you can expect that argument to come. But I love the way your metaphor. It's like ducks. Here we are. We're ducks on the water. Come shoot us. That's exactly what gun-free zones do. You're telling the lawless that come here to do your damage because we don't have any protection here.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to understand how people who support these gun-free zones do not understand that basic concept, that you are telegraphing to criminals that there's nobody here who can fight back. So come shoot us because you don't have anything to worry about. I've never understood how they don't see that.
I agree. And too, this is not a novel idea. There's 13 other states have different forms of campus carry already. So, and just like, golly, we were constitutional carry. And I'll give kudos to Governor Landry on that. He called a special session. He put it in the call for the special session, and we were able to get it passed with his support. So, of course, I never talked to the governor or any governor before I bring a bill, but hopefully he'll be in support of this too.
Yeah. Danny, I do have a question about the constitutional concealed carry that is of concern.
Right.
You're talking about SB 1 from 2024, which codified, the fundamental constitutional right to carry concealed without a permit. It was just a codification of the Second Amendment because the Second Amendment imposes no such restrictions. So SB 1 was a very, very good bill. But then SB 2 passes, which seems to establish a two tiers of liability protection. If you have a government issued permit and you have to use your gun in self-defense, you have more protection from civil lawsuits than you have if you're in the same situation and you use it, but you have not been given or paid for a government issued permit. And it's very clear in the law that they have greater immunity protections. I brought this to the attention of the bill's author, and we tried to get this fixed, but it has not yet been fixed. So my question to you is, as a matter of principle, shouldn't people who have in light of constitutional carry, shouldn't people who have a government issued permit be treated exactly the same way as law-abiding citizens who don't have a government issued permit? Why should there be any difference as far as civil liability?
You bet. You're exactly right, Chris. There's no difference whatsoever. And what for your listeners need to know too is this. whether you have a permit or don't have a permit, it doesn't give you the right to shoot somebody in cold blood. You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't
Of course not.
doesn't have any right to do anything criminal. So if you do something criminal, you're not going to have liability protection from no bill is going to give you liability protection. But
Of
if you do
course.
something lawful, why should you not have the same liability protection as somebody with a permit or not a permit? It was probably, I don't have any idea, it was probably something done on a compromise that actually was, compromised probably to get the constitutional carry passed. I don't know that, but that's probably what it was.
Yeah, probably what it was.
Well, it
Yeah.
was the funding of the state police, because the state police take in a great deal of revenue from getting permits. And so they wanted to do something to continue to encourage permits. And this was what they did.
Yes, that's right. I think Danielle, I think it's $3 or $4 million a year that the state police gets on these permits. But Danny, the reason why this is of concern is that, like I said, you have two guys in the exact same situation, and they use their gun under the exact same circumstances. One, there's a presumption of immunity there from lawsuits if you have a permit, and on the other one, he doesn't enjoy the same presumption, and so you have permitless carriers walking around in Louisiana, law-abiding citizens, believing that they are now being treated exactly the same as people who have a government issued permit, when in fact they're not, when in fact they're much more vulnerable to civil liability. And I think arguably, until this is fixed, they're in a worse position than they were in before because of their exposure here. And I just think that's important that we fix this.
Yes, and I agree. And we've always had an open carry law in Louisiana. Open carry in Louisiana has never been illegal, and that bill puts those people that have been open carry probably regressed for them. It made it a worse situation for them.
Yeah. So thank you for being receptive to this, Danny, and maybe this is something that we could work on, either as an amendment to one of your bills, possibly, or even as a freestanding bill. But I'm glad to know that you share this concern.
You bet. That's definitely a major concern.
Yeah. Now, Danny, shifting gears a little bit, there's a lot of bluster at the federal level right now regarding the SAVE Act to kind of get our election straight. We've seen that Fulton County was raided for election materials by the FBI, and ODNI Gabbard was present for that raid. There's been at least some increased scrutiny, I think it's fair to say, on the results of the 2020 election. Do you think that there is any likelihood that election integrity bills will be brought this session? Do you have your eyes on any?
I don't. I haven't. The only thing, basically, only bill it's not election integrity, but basically, I am bringing a bill to be able to give the parties the ability to completely close their primaries.
Amen. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Danny. And Danny, by the way, your bill, I hope it gets through and is passed, but you could argue that it is superfluous because under law as it exists now, I mean, the Republican Party is a private organization. And does the government have the legal right to dictate how a private organization runs its business? In this case, how the Republican Party runs its primaries to begin with.
That's my exact point. And what my bill does, it gives the authority, to, which they should already have, to whether the Democratic, Republican Party, any major party can choose who votes in their primary. So if you choose for the no parties to vote in for your primary, that's your business. But if you choose them not to, that's your business too. So that's basically, I'm just taking the power away from the government, giving it back to the parties to make their own decision. So, but back to your election integrity, Danielle, that's honestly not my wheelhouse. I just follow my grassroots people on that because I am a grassroots guy, but I'm not aware of what might be happening at the state level.
Yeah. Well, but the Bossier Watch those guys are big fans of yours, and I'm big fans of theirs too. By the way, Danny,
You bet. They do a good job.
Yeah.
And Rex Moncrief, love those guys. So I think, Danny, on a practical level, I just want to ask you this last question. On a practical level, what is the point of having a closed primary, or ostensibly a closed primary, if 875,000 no party voters are free to vote in your primary? What is
Well,
the
I can
point?
tell you the purpose. I can tell you exactly what the point is. The point is to try to keep the Republican Party move more to the liberal side, to the center.
Yeah.
That's the point, and that's what we don't want. I mean, if there are districts around the state, if we could close, I'd close the primary all the way down to dog catcher if I could. But
you do it for the state legislature, which is exempt under the current law, huh, Danny?
That's exactly right. I mean, but what that will do, it would allow you to elect more conservative Republicans if you have a closed primary. Now, it would also allow you to elect more liberal, left-leaning Democrats too. But as of right now, we have a supermajority. So I would like for that supermajority in the House and Senate to be more conservative in what they are right now. And that's what completely closed primaries would let you do. With the no parties in there, it makes it a little bit more people that are more left of center, to be able to benefit.
Yeah. Does your bill, Danny, before we move on, does your bill does it expand any office that would fall within the purview of the closed primary? In other words, are the state legislatures included in your bill, or is it going to stay the same? The federal offices, and then I think the Supreme Court and the Public Service Commission, the only offices that this would be applicable to.
I decided to leave it stay the same for right now because I figured with both of those would be too heavy a lift for one bill. So as of right now, it's just we're trying to close the primaries is what my objective is right now, or allow the parties to close them out primaries.
Well,
yeah,
maybe
makes
we'll
sense.
have a friend in the Senate who can do a floor amendment or something.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Danny, you have been a big proponent of getting rid of the state income tax. I saw earlier this week that Mississippi was having some big press conference because they've gotten rid of their state income tax. You and I were talking before we came on air that I think the legislature has been playing a game of 3-card Monte where, it's just shifting the tax burden around. It actually, nobody has been very interested or had the appetite to cut any revenue whatsoever. What's the status of the income tax for this year?
Governor Landry has said that he wants to end the state income tax, and I support him 100% on that, no doubt. What I am concerned with is that we do a tax swap, and what I'd rather see done is do come up with the savings and eliminate the state income tax. I think it's very important. I mean, if you take it out of my right pocket or my left pocket, you're still taking it from me. Yeah. So why do we want to spend a lot of time and energy and money? I brought a bill last year that would cut some of the tax credits out, the corporate welfare we're giving away, and would lower the state income tax by an equal amount, and only got 2 votes in Ways and Means. And I was very discouraged about that. So this year I'm actually bringing a bill that eliminates the state income tax, and we'll let them decide where they want to make the cuts. We have so many corporate welfare programs in this state, it's unbelievable. And the fact that we're taking money out of the pockets of the middle class, working class people in Louisiana and giving it to major corporations, it's just crazy to me. The people, we talk about keeping people in the state, and we think that is by giving money to large corporations. That's not how we do it. We keep it by giving more liberty and freedom to the people that are here. And one of those liberties and freedoms that they need given back is we don't need to hold out state income tax. So it's my understanding that that bill is going to be something I'm sure we'll be working on through the process. I don't know how it's going to turn out. In my understanding from talking in the past, it's $1 billion a year we have to cut from the budget for 1% reduction in income tax headed forward. So you're talking about $3 billion worth of cuts. So that's I realize that's a pretty heavy lift, but yes, like I said, last year I brought a bill that was simple and they didn't support it. So we're going to continue to have this conversation. And, tax swaps is just a political game. We need to get serious about the cuts while we also get serious about increasing the funding on our roads and bridges.
Amen.
Absolutely. Danny, this DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency, that was modeled after Elon Musk's DOGE on the federal level, it seems like they should be able to give you some help in finding some cuts. It seems like we've got, I mean, if Louisiana does not have fraud and waste and abuse when it comes to how our tax dollars are spent, then, I have some oceanfront property in Arizona that I'd like to sell you for monopoly money. I think you need some help. Do you have any idea what is happening with the Louisiana DOGE?
I don't. I don't have any idea what's happening with them, so I don't even have a comment on that. So
Okay.
Hopefully they are, but I can find. I know where a few billion dollars are that they can go get now. So.
Well, hopefully they follow your suggestion, Danny, because you're exactly right. The people are always the ones getting squeezed.
That's right. And and if we want the people to stay, we're going to have to quit squeezing them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you familiar, Danny, with have you looked at Dixie McMakin's legislation for the proposed constitutional convention?
I have not.
Okay. I was just curious. Danielle and I have been talking about it, and I looked at it very, very briefly. We don't have to talk about it at length, but we are going to be talking about it on our show. And I know in principle, you share the concern that, while obviously there are a number of things in our Constitution that really don't belong there because they don't go to issues of fundamental governance. They really go to statutory issues that need to be cleaned out of the Constitution. And that's ostensibly the reason why he wants to have this constitutional convention, is to clean it up. I don't want to be in a situation where the parameters are so loosely drawn that we have people going in there and toying with fundamental rights that are guaranteed under our Constitution, moving things out that don't belong in statute. I want to know what the parameters are. The devil is always in the details. So we have to look and see what the logistics of this thing is. And I know Danielle has her own position on that regarding we shouldn't be doing any of this until we clean up our elections. And I get that. But anyway, we're going to keep a close eye on that one, Danielle.
You bet. I agree. We any kind of constitutional convention like that, you've got to be really, really fearful, because they're going to be, it's such a large task to undertake, and you have so many people that are trying to look out for their own best interests that it's you got to be careful with it.
Yeah. And Danny, I know, just one last question for you here, but you talk about being a grassroots guy. What have you heard most from your constituents since last session that's kind of driving you or propelling your priorities going into this session?
It is basically the same thing all the time. Private property rights, lower taxes, lower regulations, doing away with the inspection sticker without increasing something else to offset the money for the state police. The people just want their liberty and freedom back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all they want, and they want somebody, and they are hungry for leadership. My organization, Operation Golden Arrow, has 60,000 members. I send out an email blast every week. If anybody'd like to sign up, they can go to McCormick, the number 4LA.com. And I'll say it one more time, the number 4, McCormick, the number 4LA.com. You can sign up to get my emails on a weekly basis. We try to bring the people together, keeping them aware of, and my heart is with the people, and it's so simple to understand the heart of the people. The people in Louisiana just want to be left alone. They want decent water, decent sewer, decent roads and bridges. We don't want all these fancy things that the government wants to give us because they're so bad at the basics. They just want us to stick to the basics, stay out of their life, keep our hands out of their pockets, and let them raise their children.
Yep. You truly are a Jeffersonian constitutionalist, Danny, because it was Jefferson who said that we always should fight for a government that is small and frugal, as small and as frugal as possible. And I agree with you on that point. So, Danny, thank you for continuing to fight in the legislature for us. We're going to be there in force this session to help you, and we just appreciate your standing up and fighting for the citizens of Louisiana like you do every day.
You bet, guys. I appreciate everything y'all do, and y'all have a great day, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Danny, God bless you. Have a great day.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I love talking to him. He's so reasonable, Chris. He actually hears what people say and listens to them, and then wants to do that to help them. Imagine those qualities in a legislator.
Yeah. And there was a time in this country, Danielle, when they were all that way.
Yeah.
When they all understood that as their duty and their responsibility.
Well, and if they didn't, they weren't there very long.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. They were involuntarily retired, but I just like the fact that Danny's honest about things. Yeah. He's not going to tell us what we want to hear. He's going to tell us what his honest opinion is on things. Yeah. And, so I'm just thankful he's here.
I know. I have a couple things I wanted to draw out from the conversation, Chris. I took a couple notes here. I love that he just looked the lobbyists, the CCS lobbyists, square in the face and said, y'all have lost. I don't know when the ultimate loss is coming your way, but know that people of the state are not going to tolerate this. And I think that, the count of how many jobs of politicians will be lost is what the ultimate count is going to be on this. This is not about the citizen count loss of jobs or the loss of potential jobs from this quote unquote economic development. Politicians will lose their job over this.
Oh, there's no question. And I think for some of them, it's already irreversible, no matter what happens in the upcoming session because of what they've done in the past. Now, many of them are trying to salvage their political careers at this moment, but it may be water under the bridge. We'll see if they've already gone too far with this. But Danielle, you're exactly right. I mean, as we've talked about before, there were 14 or 16 state legislators in South Dakota that were involuntarily resigned because of exactly this issue. Yeah. And as Danny said, there are a lot of things that people have a palate for and that they will tolerate. But when you start toying with their property, even the specter of forcing someone to do something with their own property that they don't want to do. Let me tell you what, that's when the guns come out. He's 100% right. And that's a big part of the reason why this carbon capture sequestration has had such, adverse response here in Louisiana and growing.
Yeah. And Tandy, I think she is chatting in from Facebook. Chris said earlier that the CO2 pipeline in Lafourche is run by a company called Strike. There was no public hearing, nothing, just the pipeline being brought into the ground. So that's the kind of nonsense that we have to be vigilant and on the watch for. And if you are in a place that you feel there's not been any discussion about CO2, you need to talk to your mayor, your parish president, your police jury, your parish council members about it and put them on notice that you're not going to tolerate this and that they need to alert the citizens should any of these companies come knocking.
Yeah, exactly. And let people know exactly. Save My Louisiana is a very wonderful and growing group in Louisiana that's just fighting relentlessly against this. Yeah. And it's good to be aligned with them on this issue. That is the issue. And I think it's just unbelievably important. Yeah. On the Second Amendment, Danielle, I wanted to
you knew I'd want to talk about that.
Oh, I knew that. We could talk about the Second Amendment all day. But I'm glad to get affirmation from Danny McCormick that there is a real liability disconnect under current law in Louisiana, and it's gaping, and we cannot continue to allow money to subordinate core rights of constitutional carriers. We cannot continue to allow permitless concealed carriers to be misled insofar as what their liability protections are if they have to use their gun. That is a profound disservice that we are doing to permitless carriers. It defeats the whole purpose of constitutional carry and puts them in a worse position than they would have been in if they had never passed constitutional carry. That's my view, and I think it's correct.
Well, I agree with you, Chris, and you know me, I'll take that and I'll go further. As Danny was talking, I was reminded that what right does the government have to issue permits anyway? Why should they issue permits, right? The inspection sticker issue and the Second Amendment issue are the same. Why should the government tell you whether you have a right to drive the vehicle that you purchased? That is insane. Why do you have to pay the government to allow you to drive your own vehicle? That is stupid. That is robbery right there. Same thing with the Second Amendment. Why should the government make you pay a fee to allow you to use your own gun with their sanctioning? That is insane. I think that should be reserved to private companies to be able to teach people how to use weapons. I don't think the government should have any ability to go anywhere near the interaction between people and their weapons unless it is a crime.
Yeah, I totally agree. Or what about, the way they used to do it? Your dad taught you gun safety.
100%.
In the backyard, he taught you how to do it, and that was the deal.
And you should not need a permit.
You should not need a permit, exactly. The only difference I would say, Danielle, in principle, I agree with you, but driving on the roads is considered a privilege. Whereas, it's plausible that the government can impose certain conditions on the exercise of a privilege. But when you're talking about when you're talking about your gun rights, that is a fundamental constitutional right that every American has. And the founding fathers insisted upon that right precisely so that citizens would always be able to protect themselves principally against government tyranny. That's what they feared. And they knew that a disarmed populace is more vulnerable to government tyranny. And so it's very important that we understand that. You're right. A law-abiding citizen does not need permission from anybody to carry a gun in the United States of America. And the idea that in Louisiana, if you don't go and apply with the state and pay the state money and get their permission to conceal carry, if you have to use your gun, you're more exposed to civil liability. I think that's an absolute disgrace. And I think it has to change. It's got to change. We've got to fix it.
And Chris, I will disagree with you on your inspection sticker point because you're getting double taxed, because if you don't have an inspection sticker and something's out of order, you get a ticket. So just ticket people on the road if something's out of order, because you're going to do it anyway. Why should we have to pay an inspection sticker fee as well?
Well, that's a good point. The only difference would be are you getting a ticket after there's been a very significant accident because of a defect on your vehicle that possibly wouldn't have been there if you had an inspection sticker and it had been inspected? I don't know, but I hate inspection stickers.
You get the inspection sticker once every 2 years. What kind of crap can go wrong after you qualify for your inspection sticker?
Well, that's true too. That's true too. Yeah, that's a good point. By the way, I do hate inspection stickers.
Yeah, I don't know why you're defending them so readily right now.
Well, okay. Well, slap me, okay?
Chris, any other points you wanted to bring out before I switch to announcements?
No, I think it was a good conversation.
Okay, yeah, great conversation. Just a reminder to folks that, Chris, you have some calls to action on some of these issues up already at lacag.org. Is that right?
Absolutely. Please, everybody who's listening, if you haven't done yet, please go to lacag.org, go to the Action Center, and please do the call to action on the Louisiana voting system. Yeah. We are strongly encouraging Nancy Landry not to spend $150 million of our tax dollars on new fraudulent computer-based voting machines. Please go do that call to action. We've already gotten thousands of them out directly to her. And even though she's not exactly telegraphing it, I know that she has concerns at this point about whether she can go forward in light of everything that is occurring in Venezuela, which we believe one of the basis for that, the deposing of their leader, was the elections. Also, Fulton County, a lot of things coming out. And, I think that, if we continue to put the pressure on Healthy Heat, double H, Healthy Heat, I think we can get her to pull off of this. It's our position, Danielle, that this is no longer a matter of administrative discretion in light of all of the evidence that is out there. At this point, going forward is a matter of self-implication. She is implicating herself at this point in what is a clearly fraudulent system of elections by investing that kind of money in a system that is fraught with vulnerabilities. And hopefully she knows that at this point, if she hasn't always known it, but hopefully she understands that I could be implicating myself in malfeasance by going forward with this.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have to get our elections fixed. That's my number one priority, always until it's done. A couple of announcements, Chris, and for those who are watching, y'all will start noticing a shift starting today in our guests as we get closer to session. More and more direct Louisiana focus. Tuesday, we will have Louisiana State Treasurer and candidate for U.S. Senate, John Fleming, joining us. That should be a great discussion. We'll hear a little bit from him on his priorities for the session going in as treasurer. And then we'll hear how his race is heating up as well with Julia Letlow and Bill Cassidy, I believe, as kind of the three of these are the race, as far as I can tell, Chris.
Yep, the three of those are the race. And at some point, Danielle, maybe you and I will talk about the 5th congressional race. You and I have discussed it. We haven't finalized anything yet, but when does qualifying ends tomorrow, Danielle?
I thought it might have been today.
Okay,
Either
if it's
today or
today,
tomorrow.
whenever. Yeah, we had made a decision that we were going to wait until qualifying is over to begin to solidify guests who are running for the congressional race there. I know, Danielle, there's a lot of people who don't really know what to do at this point in that race. I mean, you have 8 Republicans, several office holders. They just don't know what to do. So we have to really look at this very, very closely. And I think we should invite every declared candidate to come on if they would like to, because we whatever we ultimately decide to do, it's got to be based upon evidence, facts, and the record, not personalities.
Well, there you go, Chris. Also, next week, Wednesday, it will be Warrior Wednesday featuring Joe Hoft. If you are not yet a member of the Warrior Circle, you will want to join us so you can get your questions from the chat asked. And for those who can't watch us live, you can also submit them in advance on the Warrior Circle platform. So we'd love to get your questions in advance. If you have questions that you want to hear a response to on Warrior Wednesdays. And then Thursday next week, we have Commissioner of Insurance Tim Temple coming to talk about all of his insurance priorities going forward into session. So that should be a great conversation as well.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have him on. Everybody, make sure that you're subscribing and sharing the State of Freedom. Subscribe and share. The broader our voice is in the state of Louisiana, the more powerful your voice is. With every share, with every subscription, with every commitment to support us on a monthly basis, you are making your voice more powerful. Remember that. So if you're dissatisfied with your government, if you see things that make you very unhappy in the state of Louisiana, the best thing you can do is invest in the State of Freedom. We will never, ever break faith with you. That's what Danielle and I committed to 3 years ago, when we started the State of Freedom, and we will never break faith with the people. Understand that. So God bless every one of you. Thank you for all those who are supporting us now. Please continue to get the word out about the State of Freedom.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So well said. And just a reminder that if you have a business and you're interested in getting the word out about your business as well, please consider advertising with us. You can drop us an inquiry about our rates, but they're very reasonable because we want to be able to support you as you support us.
Yeah, we have a very, very loyal viewership. FeedSpot, #1 conservative political podcast in Louisiana. Our viewers trust us. And generally, when we make a recommendation, they follow it because we have earned that trust. So, yeah, you couldn't have a better platform to advertise your idea, your nonprofit, or your business. We would love to promote it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Danielle, God bless you once again. God bless we the people by you. And God bless the great state of Louisiana. We shall reconvene soon.
Yep. See you on Tuesday, Chris. God bless you.
Love you.
Love you.
Fuego, it's just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita, I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Calle Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville in the Alexandria area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Calle Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.